The Hereford Association of New Zealand president says he was denied a test for COVID-19 despite having shaken hands with 500 people plus during the World Hereford conference last month in Queenstown. The conference, which was held between March 9 and March 13, was attended by 400 delegates, and it was during this time a global pandemic was declared. It is now the source of the country's fourth biggest cluster, with 35 people testing positive for COVID-19 who are connected to the event. Colin Corney was running the show. He says he showed no symptoms but was refused a test. He says others have also shown no symptoms and they've tested positive for COVID-19. Colin joins me now. Colin, you've not had symptoms, but are you a little bit worried about this, whether you have it or not?
Good evening, Lisa. And I suppose it's always something in the back of your mind, especially that I've talked to a lot of people who were tested positive, and they advised me they were actually taking their partner and to be tested because they had every symptom that you could imagine. However, they tested negative and they were tested and tested positive. So I dare say there's a number of people who don't show symptoms but may be positive.
Colin, a lot of people wouldn't have heard of your group before, but you're hitting the headlines now, and you were running the show. We just want to get a bit of an idea of how this might have spread. So, I mean, who was there, and what did you get up to during this Hereford conference?
So, Lisa, I suppose the worst part for us is it's put a bit of a damper on an event that was outstanding. I have to say, it was just fantastic. We had visitors from 18 different countries that joined us to look and see the splendour of New Zealand and understand what we do in New Zealand so well. And that's agriculture, not high end, mainly grass and silage. And so it's a different type. So what we did, we wanted to demonstrate our beautiful country. So we held a pre-conference tour. So around about 120 people arrived right back on the 4th of March, and they did a quick tour through the North Island and then joined us in Queenstown on the 8th. So the conference itself started on the 10th, is when the actual conference, we had a bit of a welcoming on the evening of the night, and we went through to, unfortunately, Friday the 13th. But the conference itself demonstrated how New Zealand agriculture works well. What a great place, Queenstown, Wanaka, all that basin there. For overseas guests, they were just gobsmacked. And it was really great.
But Colin, during that time, a pandemic was declared. Were you aware of that at the time?
So it's quite interesting, Lisa. Even as far as the 28th of February, we contacted the Ministry of Health just to double-check that it was okay for us to carry on. At that point, New Zealand wasn't in a lockdown. So we also need to understand that we weren't the only event on.
And what did they say to you, Colin?
So at that stage, they advised that everything was okay. So we ourselves took different measures to make sure. So on all the coaches, we put hand washers, we put alcohol wipes and things for people to use as they hopped on and off the coaches. And we advised people to just ensure that they kept a good hygiene practice. However, when you have a conference like this, and they run every 4 years, and different countries will host them, we were very fortunate to host this one, and I'll never put that out of our mind that we were very fortunate to host it. And you've got a lot of people from around the world that haven't seen each other for 4 years, so obviously they shake hands and they hug and they do everything else. But as a lot of people know, when you go to a conference and there's technical events, you don't stay for each one. And when you're in a beautiful place like Queenstown, a lot of people spent part of the day in town and doing other things. So they mixed and mingled.
So they went far and wide, Colin. You were all happy to see each other. So you're hugging, shaking hands, talking up close, and then going on all your separate trips to different locations, some around the country and others around Queenstown. I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you called the Ministry of Health, can you remember around what date that was? And they told you it was okay to go ahead, did they?
Oh, so we checked. We wanted to just make sure everything was right back on the 28th of February. And that's before it was New Zealand was still open, everything was still fine. We just wanted to make sure, because that was really our go, no-go. People were already starting to travel, and so that was our key. And at that point, we were, New Zealand wasn't in lockdown. The world was probably watching and not really taking it as serious as we do today. I'm not
understood.
Just followed what we were,
As you got closer to the event, did you have any misgivings about going ahead?
No, we were just checking in on advice and making sure. New Zealand, I think at that stage, had only 2 or 3, which was one family in Auckland. And we asked people if they were not well to consider not attending. And during the time there, and I would have shaken hands with 500 people probably.
Did any of them seem unwell, Colin?
No, not at all. So we went through the conference, and it was really, really great. A lot of great overseas presenters and guest speakers. And then I actually personally took a group, which is our post tour. So we went through the Lower South Island. And then on Tuesday, the 17th, I think it is, I got a phone call from my colleague or counterpart in Australia to advise that a person that had attended back on the Tuesday and Wednesday had tested positive.
Had you shaken hands with that person, Colin?
Oh, more than likely. More than likely. I don't think there was many I didn't. So what we did, I actually had 4 coaches, about 150 odd people. And when I got off the phone, I actually parked all those coaches up. It was quite funny. We were having a fantastic day. The weather, the South Island was just put in beautiful weather, lovely countryside, beautiful animals. And I got the phone call, so we went and I parked everyone up in a wool shed and told that no one was allowed to leave until I got some advice. So I had run the 0800, the helpline, and I have to say they were really good. They escalated it through to 3 or 4 different people, and then we spoke to a person who advised us to then drive to our accommodation, which was going to be a 2.5-hour drive. And then they rang me before we got there, and they had already at that point spoken to the person in Australia that was deemed positive. And they'd gone through all of their travel and everything and advised us at that point it was unlikely that that person was in a contagious state during the 2 days they were with us.
Yet a whole bunch of you then later turned out to have COVID-19. So do you know much about how everyone is doing who's had it?
Yes, so I've been very busy. So I have spoken to everyone that I know that has been proven positive, and I've spoken to many others that haven't. So knowing that I had the list and the age group, anyone that I felt was at an age group that could be a risk, I phoned all of those on numerous days to make sure they were okay. It's interesting, some of the people I phoned, so we went to a couple of farms, for instance, where they would have had probably 20 to 25 staff and neighbours helping them to showcase their property and everything. And one person was deemed positive and they tested everyone else and no one else was positive. So it's obviously, if your immune system's at the level you're vulnerable, or your immune system's at a level where you seem to miss it.
Colin, looking back on this, hindsight's a great thing, but do you reckon all that could have been done to contain this was done? At the time you hear that someone overseas is tested positive and you've got your bus loads of people, was everything done that could be done to lock you all down and not spread this thing any further?
So we stopped. We went back to our hotel. We told everyone, so we still had a farm and a couple of big stations to visit the next day. We did not go. We actually stopped that day. So once we were advised, we went to our accommodation, and the next day we had a meeting, and myself and my breed manager, or general manager, we had a phone call with the Ministry of Health, and they advised us at that point still, because at that point there was still this one person, that our risk factor was low. And so we said, so what do we do with these people today? And we said we were thinking they could go for a coach tour around Christchurch. And we were advised at that time, that's fine. The next day, everyone went home.
You were told that was fine to go on the coach tour the next day?
Yeah, so we just went around the city. We didn't do much else but go from the motel, hotel to the coach.
Hey, it's been great.
City. Not everyone did it, but
it's been great.
We all went home.
It's been great to talk to you, Colin. We're almost out of time. Can you quickly tell me why they wouldn't give you a test?
Just that I had no symptoms at all.
Appreciate.
And neither did my wife.
That's good. That's good for you both. Any chance you could still go and get a test?
Probably now, but I have been in lockdown for over 3 weeks.
Right.
I'm not sure what it's going to tell you.
You're in the clear, it sounds like, then, if you've been in isolation for 3 weeks. Really appreciate your time.
So.
Thank you, Colin. That is Colin Corney, who was running the show at the World Hereford conference. And we know that there's been, well, that's our fourth biggest cluster there. 35 people connected with that event have tested positive for COVID-19. Colin is not one of them.